Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Then, your channel for We're Here Collecting by We're Here Collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, August 23rd. There's almost 400 albums coming out this week. I got 12 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Then Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's almost 400 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 12 on the show, though, today, so if there's something I don't talk about, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick-and-mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below in the comments section. I will add that we just opened up or I now have a storefront on Amazon. I'll put a link down below. I've got all the new releases on that site. I've got, you can go on there for new releases, pre-orders. I've got gear on there. I've got vinyl accessories, all sorts of cool stuff. So check out the Vinyl Den store also. So the big release for me this week is this new box set from Ian Anderson. This is 8314 boxed. This is a 10 LP box set spanning Ian Anderson's solo career. So Ian Anderson, known as the frontman for Jethro Tull, he's released, I think, 5 studio albums or 5 solo albums over the years. So the title 8314 is his first solo album was released in 1983. His most recent solo album was released in 2014. I think 8314 is a horrible name for a box set. They could have done, I think, really anything else would have been better. But this is a 10 LP box set. It's going to run you about $380 online. So 3 of these albums have never been available on vinyl before. The other 2 albums have been available on vinyl, but they're being released as half-speed mastered versions. There is one album I've got some questions about in this box set. So I guess I'll kind of go through what you're getting in here. So his first album, Walking the Light, is a 1 LP release. Divinities is a 1 LP release. Secret Language of Birds. So Divinities was never available on vinyl. I do know that. Secret Language of Birds has never been available on vinyl either. That is a 2 LP release with the D-side etching on there. Rupee's Dance, which has never been available on vinyl, is also a 2 LP release with a D-side etching. Thick as a Brick 2 is a 2 LP release. And then Homo Eroticus is a 1 LP release. And then there's also an extra album on there of live material from, I think it's the 80s and 90s, I think is what all the live material is from. But with the question I have with this box set is Homo Eroticus was already available on vinyl before. It was previously released as a 2 LP release. It's almost 60 minutes worth of music. And now it's being compressed onto 1 LP. You know, I don't have the 2 LP version of it. I do know people that do, so I'll compare the 2 LP. I'm interested to compare the 2 LP release to this 1 LP release and see if there's any big difference. But, you know, I'm a big Jethro Tull fan. I've never been a big, I guess I should kind of backtrack a little bit. I'm a big Jethro Tull 1970s fan, or a fan of their 70s music. I've never really gotten into a lot of Ian Anderson's solo material, but I have slowly over the last couple of years. And, you know, the albums, like I said, 3 of those have never been available on vinyl before. So I'm definitely looking to grab that box set this week. Maybe I'll do a video on it also once I get it. And then the next release is Wayne Shorter Celebration Volume 1. It's going to run you about $40 online. So this is a new release. So Wayne Shorter, who, you know, unfortunately passed away last year, he spent like pretty much the last year of his life going through a lot of this unreleased material from across his career. I guess the original plan was just to do just a 1 album release of it. So when he sat down and listened to this live album, so this is a live show from the Stockholm Jazz Festival in 2014. When he sat down and listened to this live show, that was when he decided, look, I can't just do 1 release. I'm actually going to do, he planned on doing an entire series of releases. So Blue Note is putting this out. This is a 2 LP release. This is the first one that's going to be in a series of releases celebrating Wayne Shorter's, you know, incredible music career. So it's definitely one I'm looking forward to grabbing this week because I'm a big fan of his music. So the next couple of releases are from 2 up-and-coming bands that, you know, to be completely honest, I didn't know a whole lot about these bands until probably about a year and a half ago. I'm definitely looking forward to both these releases. I'll stream them both when they come out this week. The first one is Stand Atlantic Was Here. It's their 4th studio album. It's going to be about $24 online. There's a white version, and then there's a red version. The red version is the indie exclusive. They're an Australian pop-punk band that they're, I think, one of the best female-fronted rock bands of the last couple of years, that at least as far as like newer bands that are coming out. And I had never heard these guys until it was probably early last year. I saw them open for Mod Sun. I was really impressed. I have tried to track down a couple of albums on vinyl, but they're kind of pricey, so I'm waiting for a couple of them to get reissued. I'm definitely looking forward to checking this one out this week. If you're a fan of Paramore, definitely check out Stain Atlantic. I think you'll enjoy their music. So you got that coming out this week, and they got the new album from Fontaines DC coming out. This is Romance. It's also their fourth studio album. There's a black version of this. There's a clear version of this. There's also a pink version, which is the indie exclusive. It's going to run you about $24 online. And speaking of rising bands, this is another one of those bands that up until probably it was probably late last year when I heard a couple of songs from these guys. They're an Irish rock band formed in 2017. This album's gotten some really good reviews so far. It's another one I'm definitely looking forward to streaming and checking out this week. I think they're, like I said, they're two bands that if you haven't heard of them yet, I definitely hop on your favorite streaming service and check out their music. The next album is one I think is going to be a really hard one to come by. I know a lot of people have been waiting a long time for this album to get reissued. It's going to be limited to only 1,000 copies, so if you find a copy in your local record store, I think you might be one of the lucky ones this week. This is a self-titled debut album from Britny Fox. Came out back in 1988. There's a music on vinyl release. It's going to be on red vinyl. It's going to run you about $37 online. Like I said, limited to 1,000 numbered copies. Britny Fox is one of those interesting bands because when this album came out in 88, I guess I should add that this is the first time this album has been available on vinyl since it was first released in 88. So long time that, I know there's been bootlegs of this album for years, but finally getting a reissue of it this week. So what makes this album really interesting is in 1988, this album was released in 88. Had it been released, I think, a year or two earlier, I think it would have been a much bigger album. It was a glam metal album from the late 80s, but it was met with a lot of critical acclaim. Had a couple of videos that had a lot of heavy rotation on MTV. It's not I've been listening to in a long time. I'll definitely go back and stream it. I'm sure I probably won't grab a copy of it, but I'm sure this is one of those albums there where you're getting the music on vinyl, the limited music on vinyl release this week, and then probably within the next 6 or 8 months, maybe we'll see a black version of this. So maybe I'll grab the black version whenever it's available. And then the next album is Jim Croce, Photographs and Memories, his greatest hits. So this was released back in 1974, which was a year after Jim unfortunately died. It's going to run you about $24 online, 13 of his best-known tracks. This is the album that really introduced me to Jim's music when I was probably, I was probably maybe 13 or 14 years old when I got this on cassette. I love all these tracks. And, Jim has a lot of really great music across his career, and maybe it's because his greatest hits is what introduced me to him. But I feel like he's one of those artists where I'm okay just having like a greatest hits compilation of his music. Even though he does have some other great albums, this is one I'll probably grab this week. There's also an expanded 30th anniversary edition of 311's Grassroots coming out this week. This was released back in 1994. It was their second studio album. So the 2 LP release, like I said, this is an expanded edition that they're doing. It's on clear vinyl with brown swirls. It's going to run you about $40 online. So this was the album that came out before their self-titled album, which their self-titled album was the one that blew up, made them a huge name in the mainstream. All their big hits were off their self-titled album. And that was the album that introduced me to their music. So it was after that album came out that I remember reading a review about this album. And I said it was like the Beastie Boys meets the Spin Doctors. And I thought that was really interesting. It made me go back and listen to this album. And while I don't think this is as good as their self-titled album, it's definitely an underrated album. There's definitely some really great tracks on this one. $40 is kind of a lot for me. I'll see if I can grab a copy on sale somewhere. So you got that coming out this week, and then you also got the reissue of the photo album by Death Cab for Cutie coming out. This was released back in 2001. It was their third studio album. It's going about $23 online. So this is a reissue of the 20th anniversary release. If you are a big fan of this album, know that this is a 1 LP release that's coming out this week. There was a 2 LP release that came out in 2022 that had the Stability EP included in there. So if you're a huge fan of this album, kind of keep that in mind that you can grab that 2 LP release for like an extra, $15 off of Discogs. And this album was pretty big. I remember there was a couple big tracks on here. Obviously, it wasn't like something you heard on the radio all the time. But, surprisingly enough, this is the last Death Cab for Cutie album not to chart on the Billboard 200. You've also got the first two albums from the legendary Scottish punk band The Exploited getting reissued this week. The first one is Punk's Not Dead. Came out back in 1981. This is their debut studio album. It's going to run you about $35 online. This is a really important album because, by the time 81 rolled around, a lot of people were looking at punk music as kind of this like late 70s fad. A lot of bands that kind of moved on, even like The Clash, it kind of started incorporating other sounds into their music. And this was The Exploited's response to all those critics out there. And this is an album that has gone on to become a highly influential album. I think in an album that, as far as like hardcore punk albums go, I don't think it really gets the respect that it really deserves. And for being a hardcore punk album, it actually charted pretty well in the UK. It didn't hit the charts in the US, but it hit number 20 on the album chart in the UK, number 1 on the indie chart. So, like I said, for being a punk album, that's pretty good. So you got that coming out this week. You've also got their second album, Troops of Tomorrow, coming out, released back in 82. It's also going to run you about $35 online. So musically, this is a continuation of what they did on Punk's Not Dead. A lot of these songs could have easily been taken off of that first album. And this is an album that's become a classic. I mean, some of these songs on here were covered by, Slayer did a cover of one of the songs on here. Mr. Bungle did a cover of these, and even a couple of these tracks ended up being on some soundtracks in the 80s. So, you might not know a lot of these songs on here, but I think if you're a punk fan, both this album and Punk's Not Dead are both two albums that at least are worth to kind of go back and rediscover. There's also a reissue of The Inner Sanctum by Saxon coming out this week. This was released back in 2007. It was their 17th studio album. It's going to be about $37 online. This is another music on vinyl release. It's going to be on silver vinyl. It's going to be limited to 1,000 copies. And with these music on vinyl releases, they're pressed in, I think, the Netherlands. So there could be a week or so delay from the time they actually are released until the time you see them hitting shelves here in the U.S. So this is the band's first album with Niall Glockler on drums since 1997. And I think he kind of brought back some of that classic sound to this album. And it's the one that, I haven't listened to this album in a long time. I know it's charted pretty well in the UK. I think it hit number 4 on the rock and metal charts out there. But, if you're a Saxon fan, it's definitely one worth checking out this week. And then the last one I got on my list is the Alan Parsons Project, Pyramid. Released back in 1978. It was their third studio album. It's going to be on clear vinyl. It's going to run you about $35 online. So this is the first time this album has been available on vinyl since 2011. And when this was released in 2011, it was the first time it had been on vinyl since 1989. So this album has not been available a lot over the years. I think Alan Parsons Project, I think all their albums are concept albums, but the concept of this album really kind of centered around the pyramids in Giza. It's one that I haven't listened to this album in probably 30 plus years. So it's definitely one I'll stream and check out this week. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. It's going to be an expensive week for me just because I got that box set coming. I'll probably grab that Wayne Shorter. I'll definitely stream that new Stand Atlantic and the Fontaines DC album. Got some question marks next to a couple other ones, but let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.